Hello families, welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story opens the door to a new world. Don't forget to subscribe, it would really mean the world to us. Now, let's begin. Daniel was the kind of man people pointed at and said, "That's what a good son looks like." In his early 30s, he carried himself with quiet confidence, not arrogant, but proud. He was the only child of Mama Grace, a woman whose entire world revolved around him. Their bond had been forged in the fire of hardship. Mama Grace had raised Daniel alone after his father died when he was just a boy. She washed clothes for neighbors, sold vegetables at the roadside, and worked herself to exhaustion so Daniel could go to school in clean clothes, with at least one proper meal in his stomach. Now, by God's grace and relentless determination, Daniel was a successful engineer in the city. He had a good job, a steady income, and recently, a new home, the home he proudly invited his mother to live in with him. But Daniel had also recently taken another step in life: marriage. His wife Clara was stunning, tall, elegant, with a smile that could disarm even the sternest man. Everyone in their church called them the golden couple. At the wedding, Clara had danced with Mama Grace, hugging her and saying, "Clara, don't worry, Mama. I'll take care of Daniel as if he were my own brother. You raised a good man. Now let me be your daughter." Mama Grace, smiling through tears, "God bless you, my daughter. May your home never lack joy." Those words echoed like a promise. And for the first few weeks of marriage, everything did feel like heaven. Every morning, Daniel would leave for work with his wife's kiss on his cheek and his mother's blessing at his back. The house was filled with laughter, meals shared together, and warmth that seemed unshakable. But as the old saying goes, not everything that glitters is gold. Beneath Clara's gentle smile was a shadow, a darkness no one had yet seen. It began so softly that Daniel didn't notice. One evening, Mama Grace prepared her famous egusi soup. She had spent the whole afternoon cooking, humming her favorite hymns while the pot simmered. Daniel came home to the aroma filling the house and exclaimed with delight, "Daniel, Mama, this is the smell of my childhood. Nothing tastes better than your food." Clara, who had been scrolling on her phone, raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Clara, well, it's nice. But it's a bit too oily for me. Honestly, no wonder Daniel used to be so skinny. Mama, you fed him with all this heavy food." She laughed lightly, as though it were a harmless joke. Daniel chuckled too, trying to ease the tension. "Daniel, come on, Clara. You know Mama's food made me who I am today." "Clara, yes, but we're in the modern age now. We need healthy meals, not these old-fashioned village dishes." Mama Grace said nothing. She simply lowered her eyes and continued serving. But inside, her heart pricked. A few days later, Clara commented on Mama Grace's wrapper. "Clara, Mama, why do you always wear these wrappers? You'd look so much better in lace or something stylish. People might think we're not taking good care of you." Again, she said it with a laugh, but the word stung. Daniel brushed it off. He thought Clara was just being playful, trying to modernize his mother. He didn't realize that these tiny daggers were beginning to pierce Mama Grace's spirit. The neighbors noticed it too. Sometimes, when Clara and Mama Grace walked to church together, Clara would walk a few steps ahead, her heels clicking sharply, while Mama Grace struggled to keep up in her slippers. People whispered, but no one said a word to Daniel. After all, it wasn't their home. The storm broke one Sunday morning. Mama Grace had woken up early, as she always did, to prepare breakfast before church. She fried akara and made pap, setting the table neatly. Clara strolled in, still in her silk nightgown, and frowned at the spread. "Clara, pap and akara again? Mama, don't you know Daniel likes pancakes and tea now? We're not living in the village anymore." Mama Grace looked up, startled. "Mama Grace, but my son has always loved akara. Since he was a boy, this was his favorite Sunday breakfast." Clara crossed her arms. "Clara, that was before. Things have changed. He's married now, and he should eat what his wife prepares for him. Isn't that right, Daniel?" Daniel, who had just walked in, froze. His eyes darted between the two women, the mother who had given him everything and the wife he had sworn to love. Daniel, hesitant, "Clara, it's not a big deal. I can eat both. Mama's akara today, your pancakes tomorrow. But Clara slammed the table. Clara, no, Daniel. You need to choose. Who's in charge of this house? Me, your wife, or your mother? The words hung heavy in the air. Mama Grace's hands trembled as she lowered the spoon. It was the first time Daniel saw his wife openly challenge his mother, and though he tried to laugh it off, something inside Mama Grace broke. That night, Clara didn't let the issue go. As Daniel lay in bed, she curled beside him and whispered, Clara, your mother doesn't respect me. She wants to control you, even in your own house. Can't you see it? Daniel, sighing, Clara, don't say that. Mama means well. She's only trying to help. Clara, lowering her voice, eyes flashing, help? By undermining me? By cooking what I don't want, saying things that make me look bad? Daniel, open your eyes. She's manipulating you. She wants to make me look like a bad wife. Daniel frowned. He wanted to defend his mother, but Clara's words slithered into his ears like venom. The next morning, Clara planted more seeds. Clara, Daniel, I love you. But you have to think about the future. Do you want to raise children in a house where your mother rules? She's old. She doesn't understand modern life. She's holding you back. Each word chipped away at Daniel's certainty. He still loved his mother deeply, but Clara's accusations left a mark. For the first time, doubt began to creep into his mind. Mama Grace noticed the change. Daniel spoke less at the dinner table, avoided eye contact, and sometimes withdrew when Clara made sharp remarks. It was as though a shadow had fallen over him. The breaking point came one rainy evening. Clara waited until Mama Grace had gone to bed before speaking. Her tone was colder than Daniel had ever heard. Clara, Daniel, I can't live like this anymore. Daniel, alarmed, what do you mean? Clara, firm, your mother. She has to leave this house. Either she goes, or I do. Daniel's heart stopped. Daniel, Clara, you can't be serious. This is my mother we're talking about. Clara, yes, your mother. But she treats me like a stranger in my own home. I won't live under the same roof with her. So choose, your wife or your mother. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. Clara's eyes were cold, unyielding. There was no trace of the smiling bride who had once called Mama Grace, mother. He tried to argue, to plead, but Clara folded her arms and repeated her demand. Clara, I'm giving you until tomorrow. If she's still here, then I'll be gone. And you'll never see me again. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, torn between the woman who gave him life and the woman he vowed to love till death. But his silence, his failure to defend his mother immediately, would cut Mama Grace deeper than any words ever could. In the quiet of her room, Mama Grace prayed through tears. She already knew what was coming. The next morning, rain clouds still lingered over the city. The atmosphere in the house was heavy, as though the walls themselves had overheard Clara's ultimatum. Mama Grace entered the living room with her Bible in hand. Her eyes, weary but calm, immediately sensed the tension. Daniel sat on the couch, head in his hands, while Clara stood near the window, her arms folded, watching the world outside as if it had nothing to do with her. Mama Grace, gently, my son, what troubles your heart this early morning? Daniel lifted his head, his eyes red from a sleepless night. But the words wouldn't come. He looked at his mother, then at Clara, and the silence between them screamed louder than any confession. Clara turned and spoke with chilling clarity. Clara, Mama, you should already know. This house is too small for two queens. Daniel has to make a choice. And you know the choice he must make. Mama Grace's heart pounded, but she remained composed. She turned to Daniel. Mama Grace, softly, is it true, my son? Do you want me to leave your house? Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence was like a dagger. Mama Grace, tears forming, so, after everything, the sacrifices, the years, this is what it has come to? Daniel lowered his gaze, ashamed. But shame without courage is weakness, and weakness is betrayal. Clara smirked, satisfied. She had won. That evening, Mama Grace sat quietly in her room, folding her wrapper into a small bag. She didn't need to hear Daniel's answer anymore. His silence was enough. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds as Mama Grace knelt by her bed. Her Bible lay open before her, pages wet with her tears. Mama Grace, whispering, "Lord, I gave everything for this child. I starved so he could eat. I froze so he could be warm. And now, he turns his back on me. But Father, I forgive him. Protect him from blindness. Open his eyes before it is too late." Her voice broke, but her prayer rose like incense into the night. Meanwhile, in the master bedroom, Clara lay beside Daniel, triumphant. But Daniel tossed restlessly, his conscience tearing him apart. Daniel, to himself, "How can I send Mama away? How can I live knowing I broke her heart? Yet, how can I lose Clara? God, what do I do?" The hours dragged. Mama Grace did not sleep. Instead, she carefully folded her clothes, wrapped her rosary beads, and placed her small belongings into a worn-out bag she had owned for years. By dawn, her decision was sealed. The morning was gray, the air sharp with a biting chill. Mama Grace stood by the door with her small bag. Daniel lingered nearby, torn apart, while Clara stood impatiently, tapping her foot. Clara, snapping, "Daniel, don't just stand there. Drive her to the bus station. We don't have all day." Mama Grace looked at her son one last time. Her eyes were swollen from the night's tears, but her voice carried quiet strength. "Mama Grace, Daniel, my child, I leave this house not because you sent me away, but because love cannot survive where it is not wanted. I pray you remember the womb that carried you, before it is too late." Daniel's lips trembled. He wanted to say, "Stay, Mama," but the words stuck in his throat like thorns. His silence betrayed him again. Clara shoved the car keys into his hand. The drive to the station was painfully silent. Rain drizzled on the windshield, mirroring the tears Daniel refused to shed. At the bus stop, Mama Grace stepped out slowly. She turned back, her hand resting on the car door. "Mama Grace, Daniel, no matter what, you are still my son. May God not let the day come when you understand my worth through regret." And with that, she walked away into the mist, clutching her bag. Daniel sat frozen behind the wheel, his chest heavy, his throat tight. He wanted to run after her, to beg forgiveness, but he didn't. Instead, he drove back home to a smiling Clara. For the first time, Daniel felt truly empty. Mama Grace wandered the streets aimlessly, her bag weighing heavier with each step. Her slippers splashed through puddles as she moved through the crowded market, ignored by the rush of people. She stopped at a small bench to rest. Her hands trembled, but her spirit refused to break. As she sat quietly, an elderly man in a crisp white agbada approached. His presence radiated authority and kindness. "Stranger, madam, are you all right? You look troubled." Mama Grace, forcing a smile, "I am fine, sir. The Lord watches over me." Stranger, sitting beside her, "I have lived long enough to know when someone carries pain. Please, allow me to help." At first, Mama Grace resisted. She had never begged for help in her life. But the stranger's eyes were sincere, his voice calm. Slowly, she shared her story, the son she sacrificed for, the wicked wife, the expulsion from her own child's home. The old man listened without interruption, nodding quietly. When she finished, he said simply, "Stranger, you are a rare woman. The world needs more mothers like you. Please, come with me. Let me give you rest." Mama Grace hesitated. Who was this man? Why should she trust him? But something about his presence gave her peace. She rose, and with trembling hands, followed him. Neither she nor Daniel knew that this meeting would change their destinies forever. Back at home, Clara was radiant. She moved through the house as though she had conquered a kingdom. For the first time, the walls were free of Mama Grace's presence, and to her, that meant victory. She cooked Daniel's favorite modern dishes, set the table with expensive cutlery, and poured him a glass of wine. Clara, smiling, "See, love? Now our home is ours. No interference. Just you and me. Isn't this better?" Daniel forced a smile, but his heart was heavy. Every corner of the house whispered of his mother, her laughter in the kitchen, her prayers in the morning, her gentle hand on his shoulder. Now all of it was gone. That night, Daniel dreamt of Mama Grace. In his dream, she stood in the rain, weeping, her voice echoing. Mama Grace, in the dream, Daniel, you turned your back on me. He woke up drenched in sweat, his heart racing. Daniel, to himself, what have I done? What kind of son abandons his mother? But when he turned, Clara was sleeping peacefully beside him, her face calm and victorious. For the first time, Daniel realized the terrible price of his betrayal. He had gained peace with his wife, but lost the blessing of his mother. And deep down, he knew that peace built on betrayal never lasts. The neighborhood had always admired Daniel. He was known as the boy who rose from poverty to success, the son who honored his mother by bringing her into his home. People used him as an example for their children. See Daniel? That is how a son should treat his mother. But after Mama Grace's sudden disappearance, whispers began to spread. At first, it was subtle, murmurs exchanged at the marketplace, soft comments in the church pews. Neighbor 1, whispering, "Did you hear? They say Daniel threw out his mother." Neighbor 2, shaking head, "Ah, for the sake of his wife. God forbid. Who will bless him now?" Soon, the whispers turned to bold accusations. Some neighbors crossed the street rather than greet Daniel. Others looked at Clara with cold, disapproving eyes. One Sunday, during service, the pastor preached about honoring one's parents. The congregation stole glances at Daniel, their eyes heavy with judgment. Clara squeezed Daniel's hand tightly, forcing a smile, but Daniel's cheeks burned with shame. That night, he sat alone in the living room, staring at his reflection in the dark television screen. Daniel, to himself, what have I done? I wanted peace in my marriage, but now I've lost peace with myself, and with God. Clara walked in, dressed elegantly, carrying shopping bags. Clara, snapping, "Why are you sulking again? Ignore them. People will always gossip. As long as you have me, you don't need anyone else." But Daniel knew the truth. He had lost something irreplaceable. With Mama Grace gone, Clara's grip on the household grew tighter. She began managing not only the home but also Daniel's finances. One evening, she spread papers across the dining table. Clara, excitedly, "Daniel, listen. I've been talking to some business partners. There's a new investment, real estate and importation. If we get in early, we'll be millionaires within months." Daniel frowned. "Daniel, Clara, we need to be careful. I've worked hard for my savings. I can't risk everything on speculation." Clara, rolling her eyes, "That's the problem with you. You think too small. Your mother kept you tied to poverty. But me, I see bigger things. Don't you trust me?" The mention of his mother stung, but Daniel stayed quiet. Clara leaned closer, her voice softening. "Clara, persuasively, Daniel, we deserve more. Don't you want to give me the life I deserve? Don't you want people to respect us? Imagine the house we could buy, the cars, the vacations." Her words painted pictures in Daniel's mind, pictures of success, prestige, and love. Against his better judgment, he signed the papers. That night, Clara celebrated by cooking his favorite meal. But Mama Grace's voice still echoed in his head, "May God not let the day come when you understand my worth through regret." It happened faster than Daniel could have imagined. Within months, the sure investment began to unravel. The so-called business partners disappeared. The documents Clara had pushed him to sign were riddled with loopholes. The bank accounts drained like leaking buckets. One morning, Daniel's phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from creditors. His colleagues at work whispered behind his back. His reputation, once so strong, began to crumble. When Daniel confronted Clara, she didn't show remorse. Instead, she laughed bitterly. "Clara, so what? You lost money. People lose money every day. If your mother were here, maybe she'd have warned you, right? Oh wait, you chose me instead of her." Her words sliced deeper than knives. Daniel staggered back, feeling as though the walls were closing in. That night, he sat in darkness, his head buried in his hands. His dreams of wealth had vanished, leaving only ashes. Daniel, whispering to himself, "I betrayed my mother. And for what? To end up with nothing." The final blow came suddenly. One evening, Daniel returned home after another humiliating day at work. He pushed open the door to find silence. The house was too quiet. "Clara," he called out. No answer. He rushed to their bedroom. The wardrobe doors hung open, empty. Her jewelry box was gone. Her clothes, her perfumes, her shoes, all missing. On the table lay a single note, hastily scribbled. "Daniel, I can't suffer with a man who has nothing. Don't look for me. Clara." Daniel dropped the note, his body shaking. He tore through the house like a madman, opening drawers, searching for something, anything. That's when he realized their joint savings account had been emptied. She had taken everything. Daniel collapsed onto the floor, his cries echoing through the empty house. The neighbors heard but said nothing. After all, hadn't he abandoned the woman who once blessed that same home with prayers? That night, Daniel wept until his eyes were dry. Daniel became a shadow of himself. He stopped going to work, stopped eating properly, stopped answering calls. His once bright future now looked like a broken road. One afternoon, he wandered the streets aimlessly, his clothes rumpled, his beard unshaven. Passers-by barely recognized him. As he walked, guilt gnawed at his soul. Every corner reminded him of Mama Grace. He saw mothers walking with their sons, and his heart clenched. He remembered her prayers, her laughter, her sacrifices. Daniel, to himself, brokenly, "Mama, I chose wrong. I betrayed you for a woman who never loved me. How do I find you? How do I face you?" He sat on a bench, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in his life, Daniel understood the depth of a mother's love, and the weight of losing it. That night, he whispered into the darkness, "Daniel, if I could see Mama again, just once, I would fall at her feet and beg her to forgive me." And though he didn't know it yet, fate was about to answer that desperate prayer, in a way that would shock him to his core. Daniel's search for his mother was not immediate. For days, he wandered the city in shame, asking strangers, retracing old paths, and stopping by places where Mama Grace used to buy vegetables or sing hymns to herself. But no one seemed to know where she had gone. One evening, his steps led him to a gated estate he had never entered before. A sprawling mansion stood inside, lit up like a palace. His heart ached. It reminded him of the dreams Clara used to sell him, dreams that now mocked his ruin. As he passed, he noticed a familiar figure stepping out of a sleek black car, attended by guards. His breath caught. It was her. Mama Grace. But not the weary woman he had abandoned. No, she wore a flowing gown, her head tie elegant, her face glowing with peace. At her side was the same old man who had once spoken to her at the bench. Daniel froze, his feet refusing to move. Daniel, whispering, "Mama." Mama Grace turned. Their eyes locked, and the world seemed to stop. She blinked, disbelief written on her face. Then her lips trembled. "Mama Grace, Daniel, my son?" Daniel fell to his knees right there on the pavement. Daniel, choking on tears, "Mama, forgive me. I wronged you. I let her drive you out. I chose her over you, and now I have nothing." The guards moved forward, but the old man raised his hand to stop them. He watched silently, his eyes glistening with quiet wisdom. Mama Grace stepped closer, her hands trembling. Her son was on his knees before her, the son she had prayed for every night. The air was thick with suspense. Would she embrace him, or turn away? The old man cleared his throat and spoke. His voice carried both authority and warmth. "Stranger, young man, do you know the value of what you lost?" Daniel looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Daniel, I know now. I was blind. I let lies poison me. I threw away the only person who truly loved me. Please, sir, help me beg her." Mama Grace's eyes filled with tears. She had dreamed of this day, prayed for it, but now that it had come, her heart was torn. "Mama Grace," softly, "Daniel, you chose her over me. You stood silent when she cast me out. Do you know the nights I cried? The shame I carried in my spirit?" Daniel's sobs grew heavier. He clutched her feet. "Daniel, Mama, I deserve nothing. If you never forgive me, I will still kneel here till my last breath. But please, let me serve you, even as your servant. Just don't turn me away." Silence. The only sound was Daniel's broken weeping. Finally, Mama Grace bent down, placing her wrinkled hands on his shoulders. "Mama Grace, weeping, you are my son. Blood of my blood. How can a mother's heart hold bitterness forever?" She pulled him into her arms, and for the first time in years, Daniel wept like a child on his mother's chest. The old man smiled. "Stranger, now you see. Forgiveness is the greatest wealth." As they sat inside the mansion, Daniel learned the truth. The stranger introduced himself as Chief Banjo, a billionaire philanthropist known for helping widows and orphans. When he found Mama Grace abandoned at the bus stop, he was struck by her dignity and faith despite her pain. "Chief Banjo, I have seen wealth destroy people, but I have also seen humility save lives. Mama Grace reminded me of my late sister. I decided to honor her by making Mama Grace part of my household." He had given her a place of honor in his mansion, treating her as his own sister. She no longer sold vegetables on the street. She was now surrounded by comfort, respect, and influence. Daniel listened, stunned. Daniel, whispering, "While I was busy chasing false riches, God gave you more than I ever could." Mama Grace touched his hand. "Mama Grace, the blessings of God add no sorrow. My son, wealth without love is poverty." That night, Chief Banjo offered Daniel a chance to rebuild his life, but only if he proved himself worthy. "Chief Banjo, your mother has forgiven you, but you must also learn humility. Stay here. Work under my guidance. Build from the ground up, not with pride, but with gratitude." It was the hardest condition Daniel had ever faced, to start over, stripped of ego. But he accepted. Weeks later, just as Daniel began to regain strength, a familiar figure appeared at the gates of the mansion. Clara. Her once flawless appearance was gone. Her clothes were wrinkled, her face drawn, her eyes desperate. She pushed past the guards, screaming Daniel's name. Clara, crying, "Daniel! Please, I made a mistake. Those men I trusted betrayed me. I lost everything. I need you. Let's start again." Daniel stepped outside. He stared at her, memories flooding back. Her laughter, her betrayal, her cold demand that drove his mother away. She reached for his hand, sobbing. "Clara, please, Daniel. Don't abandon me. I'm your wife." For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he shook his head. "Daniel, firmly, no, Clara. Never again. You taught me the cost of choosing wrong. You mocked my mother, destroyed my peace, and left me when I had nothing. Go back to the life you chose." Clara's cries echoed, but Daniel turned and walked back into the mansion. For the first time, his steps were strong and sure. Months passed. Daniel worked tirelessly under Chief Banjo's mentorship. Slowly, he rebuilt his career, this time with wisdom and humility. He no longer sought quick wealth, he sought purpose. Every evening, he returned to sit beside Mama Grace, listening to her stories, helping her with prayers, cherishing the moments he once took for granted. One night, as they sat on the veranda, the air cool and calm, Mama Grace placed her hand on his. "Mama Grace, smiling Daniel, I prayed for this day. Not for riches, not for mansions, but for you to return to me. A house built on love stands forever." Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of peace. The story of his betrayal, downfall, and redemption spread throughout the city. Neighbors whispered again, but now with awe. They spoke not of shame, but of grace, of forgiveness, of the son who lost everything yet found the most precious treasure again, his mother's love. And for the rest of his days, Daniel carried one lesson carved deep into his soul. Never abandon the one who gave you life. For no wife, no wealth, no world can replace a mother's love. The end.